So I ran out of daylight to shoot in, but I did get my target finished. It's just a conduit square that's zip tied to some T-posts and bungee cords with clips holding onto the corner of construction paper. It's pretty thick stuff. The frame is big enough for 48-inch paper, but my local store only had 36-inch. I've got it set up at 20 yards right now, so this is more than big enough. So this should be pretty portable. Like, I'll drive some T-posts out at 40 yards and be able to move back and forth. And I bought this style of corners, and I'm thinking it should be really easy to design a base for the shot marker system. And I've always wanted something portable that I could use with the shot marker, so I want to give it a try. It should be easy to make a mount on the 3D printer. My original plan was to have the roll of paper on the bottom rail so you could just feed out your next target, or I guess the top rail might have been even easier, probably harder to load it onto the beam, but you know, whatever. But I decided I'm just going to go ahead and cut out targets. I bought a 100-foot roll, so I think I'm going to just go ahead and cut it all up into targets this size. So I don't feel bad about not getting to shoot today, because the sun was pretty intense. There wasn't a cloud in the sky, and it would have been a tough chronograph day. But tomorrow's supposed to be partly cloudy at least. So hopefully it turns out to be a good thing. What I do want to do is place an order. The order I was talking about yesterday, need to make some decisions and get that order placed. And while I'm at it, I want to address some comments and questions and whatnot. I'll show you what I've already put in the cart. So luckily they've got some 2 3/4 inch holes in stock that are unskived. So I'm going to order 2 bags of those. That's 200. And that should be enough to play with for a good long while. A commenter had mentioned that they don't understand why I'm worried about building a 3-inch round for the same load. The only benefit to 3 or 3.5 is to get higher payloads of shot. Totally true. Talking about this one right here, where instead of trimming off the excess hole, I just made the roll crimp longer. I did that because I want to see what happens. That's all this stuff's about. We're on day 11. I have not loaded a single round that makes any sense whatsoever. These are dumb, and I don't recommend any of it. Another example is the WAA 12R wad. A couple of people had mentioned these are really meant for the tapered holes. The Lyman manual has data for this hole, so it's not unheard of to use it in a straight wall hole like a Fiocchi, but they're not designed for it. A couple interesting things that might happen. I don't know what's going to happen, but okay, let's say this wad doesn't obturate very well because the cup is really meant for a tapered hole, so it's not as big as it could be in a full-size hole. Maybe we see a big drop in velocity. Maybe this is going to be 300 feet per second slower than everything else. That will be interesting to find out. If it is, that's going to help us explain and understand what's going on here. If it doesn't, that's going to help us understand and explain what's going on here. So with the long hole and the short hole both roll crimped on the exact same load, are we going to see any difference? You know, if we do, might mean that the simple friction of the longer hole or the bigger roll crimp might be making a difference. If we don't see any difference, then it doesn't matter. So just always keep that in mind. I'm not trying to load anything useful. If you're actually loading lead shot for a purpose, you should just buy one of the millions of available wads that will build that load perfectly. And there's load data and stuff, and it's easy. Look up your assembly instructions and you're good to go. The reason I'm loading the way that I am is because these are the components that I'm going to have to use with tungsten. You know, when we're loading tungsten, we're chucking $10 bills down range every time we pull the trigger. So just trying to learn on the cheap stuff, doing some really weird stuff, but just trying to learn, get better, understand what's happening in the shot shell. So back to my cart, I've gone ahead and added this ITX buffer. They've got 3 types of buffer. Original number 47 and this BSB ITX. I'm going to go with the BSB ITX. They even have this little chart explaining the purpose of each. And the BSB is for high friction pellets, ITX, heavy shot, bismuth, and other tungsten. Now, having said that, if you go to the Lyman manual and look in their section for heavy shot, all of their loads use the number 47 buffer. Now, I don't know if the ITX buffer was available whenever they developed this. Probably not, I'm assuming. Now, Ballistic Products has a tiny amount of load data for this shot. I bought the heaviest stuff, the 18 grams per cubic centimeter. This right here is what I bought. Sphero Tungsten Super Shot 18.0 number 9, 4-pound bag. And if we go down here where it says view loading data here and click here, we get a little pamphlet with some load data. The last page is the only stuff that they've got for the 18 stuff. None of their loads are buffered, And what's hilarious is like they don't even use their own TPS wads. Now I forgot what we were even talking about that brought me here. I guess I was just showing the pathetically small amount of load data. There's nothing at all for 3-inch, just 3 loads for a 2 3/4 and 1 for a 3 1/2. I mean, luckily it is the hull we're using. It's in the Fiocchi hulls and covers long shot and universal. Let's see if we can look up the wads they use. So the first load on this page is a CSD 078. Okay, that's their steel series apparently. Maybe this is something worth looking into. It gets us a crush section, whatever they call that, the compression section. I think if I wanted to try one, I would want the smallest one, right? Whenever we use tungsten, our shot density is going to be so much higher than steel. So the smallest one is for 7/8 ounce of steel. Maybe I should grab some of those and we could see how much tungsten fits into it. So back to the load data, that was a 7/8 ounce load, and they used a single, so 1/4 FW20 means, the 1/4 means a 1/4 inch, FW means fiber wad, and then 20 is the gauge. So that's a 1/4 inch fiber wad, 20 gauge in the base, which means under the shot. I kind of want to try these. It was 19 bucks for 250 of them. Screw it, let's do it. Let's go back. The other wad that was used was the LBC 30. Let's see what that is. So one thing I noticed, so these are unslit wads. You have to slit them yourself. And it was the same way with those ones I just put into the cart. We're going to have to learn about that, I guess. How to slit a wad properly. There is no information in here whatsoever about this being a steel safe or tungsten safe wad. See what else they had. Oh, okay, so there's a gas seal. See where it says FS12 here? That is a gas seal. So underneath this is one of these. There's another gas seal I was looking at called, I think it's called the X12X. This one right here is what the Lyman manual used. So these are, let's see, 8 bucks for 250 of them. Let's get some of the X12Xs. I don't know if I like these. Yeah, I think I'm just going to go with the X12X. But I did want to get some gas seals. Did I already add these to the cart? I think I did. Yeah, so we've got that now. Yeah, this second combination of the FS12 and the LBC 30, I think I'm just going to pass. A couple people have asked about my shotgun automatically ejecting shells and the pump coming to the rear. That is the Winchester speed pump feature. It was an advertised feature of this gun, so that's what you want to search if you want to learn more about it. It's called the Winchester speed pump. The gun is working as designed. So we were talking about using the really hard nitro cards, and I was wondering whether they could directly interface with shot or whether they would be too hard, and somebody else kind of brought that up. Might work for tungsten, but lead will get flattened all across the bottom. That was my thought as well. If somebody said you're a moron, there's no way that's going to happen, lead will just sink down into there a little bit, I would buy that too. So I don't know if we'll test it. Yeah, they just seem too hard. I don't want to use them directly against the shot. Let's give that shot something pillowy and soft, like the felt or the cork. Seems like the way to go. I'm thinking I might need to switch to steel shot, especially since we're going to start looking at patterns. We're going to start playing with buffer and some of these questions like the nitro card hardness and stuff. Like steel would be a better test. So like right now, I'm taking advantage of the heavy lead to, quite honestly, I'm using it to get comfortable with the problems associated with slow burning powders, which I want to talk about here in just a second. But if we shoot some steel, it's just so much lighter that we'll probably need to go to faster powders that may not really have much application once we're in tungsten, but it'll at least get us into steel where, you know, we can play with Mylar wraps and buffer. And I think the steps needed as far as buffer and maybe wad differences, if we could get steel patterning better, I bet that would translate to tungsten. Hopefully that train of thought made any sense, but I want to buy some steel shot. The smallest stuff they have available is number 8, which would actually maybe be a good idea because, okay, so we're shooting number 8 lead. We're shooting number 9 TSS, but we can't get steel that small. But the way a steel shot load of number 8s compresses and sets back and interacts with wads and stuff should be a pretty good analog for number 9 tungsten, I think. So $26 for 10 pounds. Let's get some. I've been eyeballing the slug section. We'll get to that later. But back to the card and filler wads. Before we forget, let's get some 16 gauge overshot cards. And a couple people mentioned I might try these clear overshot discs and said they would probably do better during crimping at compressing the shot column. That sounds reasonable to me. So let's grab a pack of those. So let's look at cork again. So the only cork I bought last time was 1/8 of an inch. I kind of wanted to mix it up with felt and cork and have both to play with. At that time, I thought this would be a short project that was over soon and didn't want to buy a bunch of crap I didn't need. But now that this is dragged out into a gargantuan project, might as well just have some of everything. So I've already got the 1/8 of an inch, so let's go ahead and grab some of the 1/4 inch ones. And that was the reason I'm getting 20 gauges, because it needs to fit inside of the shot cup. They've got these ones that are 1/16 of an inch. I think we're good. I think I'm going to pass on those for right now. And then over on the felt side, I bought 1/4 inch, so this time let's buy some 1/8 inch. And then the last section are these fiber filler wads. So these are big and fluffy, and they're 1/2 inch. And it says they can easily be split with fingernail for custom load adjustments. Let's grab some in 20 gauge. So it looks like the part number has changed, but I'm pretty sure these are what those are, because they're labeled fiber cushion wad, 1/4 inch thick, 16 gauge. This is from some of my grandfather's old 16 gauge stuff. Yeah, it looks like you can split them if you need to. They're reasonably soft, so that's good. Let's go ahead and get a bag of those. And I think that might do it. What else did I need? So in our tests so far with these TPS wads, we've had way more shot cup than we needed. We're always adding at least 1/4 of an inch of stuff. But they do make one that's shorter. Like this is the shortest one. It's 35 millimeter. And there's a chart here. It shows, so the 2 3/4 inch wad that we have is supposed to hold 1 3/4 ounce. That's what we've been putting in it, and it fits fine. This 35 millimeter is a 1 1/8 ounce shot cup. So you can stack those gas seals under these, and they've got a sheet for load data on these TPS wads. And like here's some 3.5 inch heavy shot data. They actually stack 3, this particular load right here, they stack 3 of the X12X gas seals under one of the TPS wads. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up a bag of these just for testing to see if we can move some of that filler, some of those spacers out of the shot cup and down at a gas seal. Will anything change? I'm not sure. I want to find out. Yeah, I think this covers it. That's enough to get us going. You might say, why not order from Precision Reloading? Well, their buffer's out of stock, and I wanted to order those Fiocchi hulls at Ballistic Products, so that's the way I decided to go. Didn't want to split orders. The last thing I want to address before we finish this one is Blue Dot. A couple people had made comments asking, why did I choose Blue Dot? Long shot would have been better, easier, more appropriate, and Blue Dot is the one most likely to give me ignition problems. Well, that's exactly why I picked it. All of the problems that made you think, oh my God, he chose Blue Dot. He might be headed for problems. I'm trying to head to problems. So far, so good with the Fiocchi primer. A lot of people will move to the Federal primer or a Magnum primer or a hotter primer when they're using Blue Dot, or at least I've seen a lot of people recommend it. So kind of like the old days when we did that 6.5 Creedmoor video series where I was trying to induce hang fires by using really light loads and really weak primers. This is kind of a much more mild version of that. So to really push the issue, once we get done with the test we've already got scheduled, and the next one we've already got scheduled, and then the other 15 that I've got in mind, I want to take our 36 grains of Blue Dot, which is hot, and work down. Is velocity going to go down as I would expect? Are weird things going to happen? Will we start having dud rounds because the primers aren't lighting up the powder? I don't know. There's just so much bad info masquerading as common knowledge in the shotgunning world, I don't know what to believe. So just trying to test some of this stuff for myself. Here's another one that popped in my mind the other day. And I'm not saying it's not true, but I'm saying I don't understand how it's possible. So the tapered holes, which are the target holes from Remington and Winchester. If we switched to one of those, our pressure would go up. Because of that tapered hole, where it's thicker at the base, we've essentially got less case capacity, which is going to raise the pressure and and you got to be careful. Why would that happen? How does case capacity matter here? Which some of this stuff and some of these concepts we're exploring with, the next range test and then the one after that. But assuming, I don't know, let's say I started off with a hole that was a foot long, and I put all the crap I wanted into it, and then I crimped down onto it. In a load like we've been loading, if we don't really care about minor differences in the length of the finished shell, why would a tapered wad have higher pressure? Because we're always going to have the base of the wad, the obturating cup is going to be down against that powder. The powder is going to take whatever space it needs. And whether that's part of a thicker tapered lower section or part of, a straight walled hole, I'm having a hard time coming up with reasons why that would increase pressure. Like in my mind, I'm just not seeing how that's going to increase pressure on its own. Well, here's another one. A lot of people have mentioned that, the hardest of the wads are supposed to go down on powder. So let's say in one of these loads, we put one of these cards below the wad just like that. We just lowered the case capacity of the powder section. No, we didn't. We just moved everything up a little bit. So in a tapered wad, why couldn't we just put the same powder charge down in there? The wad's going to sit a little bit higher because of the narrower powder area. And then same wad, same payload, roll crimper as appropriate, and fire. I don't know if that made any sense whatsoever, but wrapping my head around that has been on my mind today for some reason. So that's it, folks. That's where we leave it. Sorry for no range results today. Should be tomorrow. I can't imagine why it wouldn't be tomorrow. We're ready to shoot. You saw the first targets already hung out there. So I'll see y'all then.